Warning: the following contains explicit language and subject matter that may not be suitable for younger listeners, church folk, and people who enjoy kale smoothies.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to APodAmongstMen. I'm your host, Steve B., and this is Coffee Break Conversations for the 21st Century. My guest today, Dr. Sam Madeira from Washington State. Dr. Sam Madeira is a naturopathic doctor, specializes in testosterone and men's muscle health, endocrinology. We talked a lot about testosterone, the effects it has on men, as we're aging, warning signs of low testosterone. This one's very science heavy, and I guarantee you, guys, if you're listening, there's something in here for you, and you're probably going to be surprised at how accurate some of these things are. I know I was, but long and short of it, this is a good episode, very enlightening. So I hope you guys get something out of it. But without further ado, here he is, Dr. Sam.
Yeah.
All right. So first and foremost, I probably should have done this right as soon as we started talking, but thank you very much for coming on the show, for agreeing to do this. This is a nice service for myself and the listeners. I'm a electrician by trade, so most of the people I deal with on a day-to-day basis, their extent of their knowledge on physical health and everything is, just put some electrical tape on it, you'll be fine. That's the end of it. So, Doc, do you want to give a little bit of a background about who you are, where you're from, all the good stuff, just for the listeners who are unfamiliar?
You bet. My name's Dr. Sam Madeira. I'm a licensed naturopathic doctor in Washington State, out here in Seattle, Washington, and in Whitefish, Montana, so two different states in the Northwest part of the U.S. And I grew up in Vermont, New Hampshire, and I spent some time in Massachusetts, and then been out west basically for the last almost 20 years here, and mostly came out here for school and stayed. I focus in mostly men's health, which is why we're talking, and men's hormone health in particular. So functional endocrinology. Most endocrinologists, MD endocrinologists today focus on diabetes because it's such an epidemic. So, I really, while that is something I definitely help people with.
Point taken. I'm going to put my soda to the side. I got it.
Yeah. So, there's a lot to it. We can get into those details today.
Okay. So you focus on functional endocrinology. To the layman, that is the medicine of hormones.
So if there's low testosterone or low or high thyroid hormones, metabolic syndrome, weight gain. So if you have high cholesterol, you go to the doctor and say, hey, I have high cholesterol, I have high blood pressure, I got a little bit too much weight around the midsection, feeling a little fatigued, don't really feel like myself. I want to feel 120%, but I only feel like I'm functioning at 75% most of the time or less. Then that could be low testosterone. So
how common do you find that being? And is there an age range when that really starts to take effect?
Yeah, low testosterone is also known as andropause. Unlike women's menopause, it can happen really at any age, which is the biggest myth that I think a lot of people have, is that they think it can happen, usually can happen around age 50. Whereas, it's definitely more common around age 45 to 50 plus. There's, men that I work with in their 20s and 30s. And I think that since I've been doing that, that's been initially that was the biggest shock for me, that men were coming into the clinic and they were 34 years old, 32 years old, and they have low testosterone. So a lot of things can cause low testosterone. There's many things that can cause it. BPA, which is like a bisphenol A, is a chemical that is a xenoestrogen, and it disrupts testosterone and also disrupts things like fertility and stuff like that, and in men and women. And there's a lot of other xenoestrogens in our air, food, and water. There's BPC as well. So some things may say, maybe a plastic bottle may say BPA free, but it may still have BPC, which is also an issue because it can cause or contribute to infertility in men, which is also an epidemic. So a lot of it's environmental. Some of it is aging. A lot of it is lack of sleep, a lack of, restful sleep. And some people can get by on 7 hours of sleep and have great hormones. Other people need 8 to 9 hours of sleep, but the minimum is 7. And a lot of guys are functioning on 5 to 6 hours of sleep most nights and for years. So
yeah, that's really true. Especially like our culture, the way most guys think of being a man is, get up, go to work, you sleep when you're dead. That's it. And we never take the time to stop and, maybe I should get a little sleep because I'm not really functioning at 100%. I'm kind of burning the candle at both ends every day of the week. When they're not at work, they come home and they're working on the house, they're fixing something. If they have some time, they take the family out, and it's never rest. There's something about the way we look at it. It's like if we're resting, we're being lazy. We should be doing something. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And that's a tough one.
Yeah, definitely. And, there's a lot of people out there. I mean, I'm also an entrepreneur, so I started my own clinic over 5 years ago now. And one of the things that I learned pretty quickly is that you can be busy and be very unproductive. Yeah. So if you're all
I know a lot of those guys.
Yeah, right. It's like, hey, I'm busy, and you're trying to get together with maybe an old friend or something, and they keep saying they're busy all the time. They may be busy, but they may not be that productive. They may just be kind of like, a dog chasing their tail kind of thing and running around doing errands and things like that. But when it comes down to it and the week's over, they may be exhausted. And if you don't have time to recharge, that's actually when your body makes the hormones, is when you're sleeping. So it is very, very useful time. And as far as regenerating your body and optimizing things like immune health and brain health, especially if you have a family history of things like dementia, heart disease, all those things can be mitigated by just sleeping a little bit more. And there's even some research, especially animal research, but human research too, that shows that less than 7 hours of sleep a night on, a lot of nights in a row can eventually lead to atrophy of your testicles, atrophy of your muscle mass. And a lot of men want to optimize muscle mass, even if you're a pretty lean person. After age 30, muscle mass is going to be harder to maintain. And it's, very important to have at least a healthy amount of muscle mass. And you don't have to try to be a bodybuilder or power lifter or anything if that's not your thing. But we're talking about how to be healthy. And I think a lot of guys that I talk to, they don't even have 10 minutes, at least they say they don't have 10 minutes to work out a day. So I think that a lot of that is about how you plan your day. And there's some guys out there that, they may not be entrepreneurs or working for themselves, but their job is not as set in stone as maybe, like your job might be as an electrician. And, they may be a salesperson driving around, and they could take 25-minute lunch break or 20-minute lunch break and get out of the car, walk around the block, eat their lunch, get back in the car and keep going. And so I think it is a mindset thing, like you're saying. You're not a slacker if you're taking care of yourself, because then you're able to perform at an even higher level.
Well, for sure. I mean, people say they don't have time. It's definitely an excuse. I've found. Some of the most in shape, healthy people I've seen, they're doing workouts, on their lunch break. Like I worked with a guy. He was in his mid-50s. He's a Jersey City firefighter, and the guy was in better shape than 99% of the people I've met in my life. And every day at lunch, he would go over into one of the apartments where the doors were unfinished, and he would do pull-ups on the door frame. And then he would do push-ups with his feet on the stack of sheetrock. And he actually took the time to do something to maintain himself. So it's only what you make it. And I know, I've been through, weight loss periods in my life when I was younger. About 10 years ago, I lost like 50 pounds because I had the time and dedication to actually put into it. Now, being older and married with a kid and, free time is a little harder to come by, but there really is no excuse, like you said. Like, if you really want to do it, the time is always there. Like, you have time. You don't have to dedicate 2 hours of your day to, doing fasted cardio at first thing in the morning and then, lifting weights at 7 o'clock when work is over. It's just little periods throughout the day. There's things you can do that really aren't that, you don't need a lot of gear for, a lot of body weight stuff as far as, exercising. So,
yeah,
I don't
definitely. And a lot of people have been thrown off by gyms being closed during this whole pandemic and stuff. And, if you have another space in your home that's, like 10 by 12 space or something like that, whether it's in your garage or a backyard or, another bedroom or your bedroom that you can just clear out. You can do push-ups, you can do air squats, you can do, pull-ups, like you said, you can do all those things, and you can look up workouts that are just body weight workouts on YouTube and do a 12-minute workout, twice a day or something, or once a day. So like you said, there's so many ways to kind of fit this thing in. And then I think the sleep part, I've heard a lot of pushback from, not a lot, but I've heard some pushback from some men, not that they weren't my patients. So it was a little bit different conversation around the sleep thing. And a lot of people as men are very stuck in their ways of saying, well, I've always done it this way. And the thing with medicine is we're always getting new research and new data. And there's a great book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, PhD.
He had a great episode on Joe Rogan that I think really shook a lot of people.
Yeah. So you can go listen to the interview with Joe Rogan. He did an interview with Dr. Peter Attia on the Drive podcast with Peter Attia, and actually 3 different episodes, 3-part series. And then he has his book, Why We Sleep, which is very in-depth, and you can listen to it on Audible if you're, commuting a lot or something and you don't have time to read. So that can give you kind of the data and get you caught up on, how sleep affects a lot of different things. One of the things in that book that really struck me is that they used to do these Guinness Book of World Record competitions for sleep deprivation, and they had to cancel them because people were trying to commit suicide. They were just going crazy. They're developing psychosis, all kinds of mental issues from trying to win the Guinness Book of World Records of no sleep for multiple days. And they just canceled it. They said, no way. Meanwhile, they're still allowing people to jump out of, aircraft, like basically in the outer orbit of the planet Earth, and jump back in, and sponsored by Red Bull, and you can watch those videos on YouTube, right?
Yeah, we've seen the commercials.
Yeah, so you compare that with how risky that is to, they keep allowing things like that to sleep deprivation, and they say no more on sleep deprivation, but keep jumping out of airplanes with and without parachutes, or doing all this crazy stuff where you definitely can kill yourself. But sleep deprivation
that's quite a comparison. It's like, you could jump out of that, space station and land on Earth, but don't stay awake for too long. Like, those are the two. Yeah, it's pretty. When you lay it out like that, it's kind of like, wow, that sounds serious then. But I mean, we have all experienced that sleep deprivation. For once you hit that 24-hour mark, that in itself is like, all right, this is enough. Like, everything starts to hurt or ache. You get slow. You just get grumpy, and that's 24 hours. That's
right.
I mean, imagine day after day after day of just not enough sleep, and then you get, most of the people we see in our day-to-day life. Just you get grumpy. You don't feel good. I just thought of something. I heard this. I don't know. It could be complete bullshit. But years ago, there was a study. They were saying that the effect that you like waking up early every day, most people do for work, or essentially having your sleep like interrupted. So you're woken up not by choice, but, by something else, that sustained effect day after day after day has the same effect on a person's brain as torture would. Like, I don't know if that was true, but hearing, yourself and hearing Dr. Walker speak about, all the effects of sleep deprivation, it seems to make sense. I mean, it feels like it makes sense. I wake up at 5 a.m. every day. I have for 15 years, and it kind of feels like torture. So, do you think there's any truth in that, or is that just,
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. What, at least my interpretation of what you're talking about, is that especially if you're waking up in the middle of a sleep cycle, it's going to be a lot harder to function and get out of bed. So, you want to make sure that ideally you're waking up before the beginning of another sleep cycle or the end of one. So there's, I think it's basically an alarm clock app that's free on your phone, and it listens to your breathing somehow at around, half an arm's length away, and you just put your smartphone on airplane mode, and it will wake you up before you get into another sleep cycle. There was an article, I believe, about exactly what you're talking about years ago, and they were talking about this very thing with, waking up by an alarm every morning is, it's definitely not conducive to, I think, like our natural rhythms. It's a lot better if you can get your brain, the hypothalamus part of your brain, which is basically control center, and saying, okay, we're going to wake up, at this time, and this is just our habit. And that's one of the recommendations that Dr. Walker says, is that if you can go to bed and wake up at the same time every morning and night, then you're going to be a lot better off. And usually what we do on the weekends is there's at least a 1 to 3 hour shift in our sleep pattern, which, if you look at that could be the equivalent of taking a weekend and going from San Francisco to New York City and being in those different time zones. So your body doesn't understand that it hasn't switched time zones. It thinks it has, essentially, in a way, even though the light cycle's the same. And it's very confusing to your body. So the other things, as far as like being healthy, that we're finding is that there's a better time to exercise during the day. For some people, they exercise better around mid-morning, which could be hard if you're trying to work out during a workday and you're working during that time. But other people find that they exercise better in mid-afternoon. But, Dr. Walker says don't do workout after 7 p.m. There's even some research that's coming out saying that if it's ideal to finish dinner before 7 p.m. and that people who on a over, probably decades of time period are eating dinner after 7 p.m. had higher chances of getting cancer. So it's not even just what you're eating anymore. We all know like fast food's bad for us, and eat more vegetables and fresh vegetables, fresh fruit when you can, and all those things. But within that parameter, if you're still doing that and you're eating at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and then trying to go to bed at 11, it's better to eat at 6:30 or 7 and be done by 7, and then, go to bed around 10:30 or something. So, or earlier.
I'm still eating my 7 servings of grains a day. That's the way that was taught by the food pyramid. I just figured that, would never change. Let's rock with that forever. I mean, that's still good, right? I'm joking, by the way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I was hoping. So the whole food pyramid is funny because, I remember looking at that on the back of the cereal box growing up as a kid and eating cereal and for breakfast, and then your blood sugar just crashing. As far as for hormones, from what we can see, at least so far from the research, the 2 best diets out there for people, and work with a whole foods nutritionist or a doctor who knows a lot about nutrition. If most conventional doctors don't really get any nutritional training in medical school, so they would have to get extra training. So that's why I say a doctor who knows about nutrition, and work on your meals and your, not just meal planning, but basically eating paleo, ketogenic diet, one or the other, and picking something and sticking to it for long periods of time is going to get you the results that you're looking for. So, if you can eat gluten-free grains and then grains sparingly, you don't have to, you don't have to be 100% carb free if you don't do well in a ketogenic diet, for example. But, for example, I don't eat any gluten. Sometimes I'll eat brown rice pasta, but usually I'm always eating red meats. There's a lot of mythology out there that like fats cause high, chance of heart disease, and red meat's bad for you and causes cancer. And there's lots of this mythology out there that just is not true. Mm-hmm. And especially if you're eating grass-fed meat, it has higher omega-3 fatty acids, so you're going to have more inflammatory diet. And that's kind of the goal. Is most people's diets are pro-inflammatory, so eating a lot of corn, eating a lot of gluten, eating things that are causing inflammation to you individually, because all of our genetics are a little bit different. And some people may be able to eat tomatoes and other people can't eat potatoes. So it's a matter of figuring out what works for you and sticking to that, and then rotating foods too, not overdoing one food just because, I think this is healthy for me, so I'm going to eat every day. I'm going to eat this one salad that is the same thing, and I think a lot of people they pigeonhole themselves into a corner with food after they've done something like elimination diet, and they get scared of food, and that's not the goal. If you're eating real food, mostly real food, and you've already figured out the 1 to 4 foods or something that really aggravate you, and you've cut those out, you should be able to eat most other foods. And if you can't, then you may have something like autoimmune disease or celiac disease, or like a real health issue like Crohn's or something that is a little bit bigger thing to unravel.
Before we go further with food, I want to kind of circle back onto something that you touched on earlier on in the episode, and we were talking about testosterone, like low T and the effects it has, how it's a lot of times caused by sleep, by some external factors. Could you describe a little bit, like what are some warning signs that you may have low testosterone? Like what are some ways that can manifest itself for a person, for a
Sure,
guy?
Yeah. So key signs are decreased strength and endurance, whether you just notice lifting heavy things. Let's say you're moving some furniture around, cleaning your home, and you used to be able to lift the same amount of weight, or you're actually weight training and you're just not recovering as fast as you used to. You don't have the same strength and endurance you used to maybe 1 or 2 years ago, and not a lot has changed otherwise. Fatigue, so feeling tired more than you used to, falling asleep on the couch after work or after dinner time could be a sign of low testosterone. Low motivation, so being if you're a really social person most of your life and you're getting less and less social, and less outgoing and less confident and less motivated to do things that are your hobbies, or things that maybe aren't your hobbies that need to get done around the house, whether that be cleaning or fixing things, and you are feeling, or maybe your wife or significant other is kind of accusing you of being lazy, that could be low testosterone. It could not be your fault. It could be truly a physiological issue. Sexual issues are what people mostly think about besides muscle health with testosterone. So weaker erections, you may not have full-on erectile dysfunction yet, but weaker erections, no morning erections, no spontaneous erections, those are all signs. So if someone's not getting a morning erection most mornings, then work on your sleep, see if that can switch that around. may have sleep apnea. Sleep apnea can cause low testosterone. A lot of guys have sleep apnea today. And pre-diabetes, diabetes causes low testosterone. So a lot of people have that. Obesity causes it. A lot of people have that. So, a lot of common conditions and common things cause low testosterone. Chronic inflammation, being, lots of colds and flus, or getting sick a lot, chronic Lyme disease, all these things can lead.
And those can cause it, and those aren't symptoms?
Those can cause
okay.
it. Yeah. So low libido is another cardinal sign of low testosterone. And so you don't have to have any sexual problems. Some men that I've worked with over the years, the only issue they had, and they had low testosterone, was decreased strength and endurance. And they're like, what, like sex life is pretty good. But they also didn't realize like how much better everything else could be. So we usually get used to like a certain normal for ourselves, especially, after age 35. So, age 40, around age 40 is usually when people come in to see me, age 38, 40, and they say, hey, I'm just noticing that I don't really quite feel like myself. I don't really know what's going on. It doesn't make sense. Maybe about 60% of them, 50 to 60% of them may have had their medical doctor or conventional practitioner check their total testosterone, and it's low normal, and that practitioner said you're in the normal range. But the other issue that everybody should be aware of on your show is that total testosterone ranges have dropped significantly in just the last 4 years. They've gone from about, on the top of the range for total testosterone, 1250 to, so 1250, down to 350 was how it used to be. And now the range is, for some labs, as low as 160 to around about 800, 700. So they're saying that it's normal to have a 400 total testosterone. It's normal to have a 350 testosterone or 325 total testosterone, when that's
really the low end of the spectrum.
Yeah. And not to scare guys, but if you have for a long time, if you have for years, if you have a total testosterone of 400, you're already getting venous leakage and damage to the endothelial cells, which has less to do with the veins and the vascular system themselves, but the tissue just right outside of it. And that's why people aren't able to achieve and maintain erections, and that's what's causing the erectile dysfunction. So usually it's a hormone issue and a vascular issue, and that can cause, basically an inability to achieve and maintain erection whatsoever. Until you get those testosterone levels up for a period of time and keep them up, then you're not going to be able to, get it up and enjoy life that way.
So what can be done in
so cases? What can be done if it's severely low, if you have a total testosterone under 500 and it's been that way for a while, and you got your testosterone level checked in the morning, this total testosterone, then you should probably do testosterone replacement therapy. You want to make sure that you don't have any clotting disorder, or you don't have liver disease or renal disease, kidney disease, and you're getting treated for sleep apnea, and that you're not on any warfarin, because that can interact. There's some other contraindications too. So if you've never had a clot, but some people in your family have had deep vein thrombosis or pulmonary embolism, then you want to get factor 5 Leiden and factor 2 Leiden tested, and those are clotting genetics to say that, okay, this person's most likely going to, some period of time, could get a clot, and usually don't put you on warfarin until you've had one. So there's no like prophylactic treatment. Low-dose aspirin may help, concussion stockings may help, but it's not a foolproof preventative measure. You probably should do those things if you're high risk for clotting anyway. but you should not do testosterone therapy injections. You maybe could try a cream instead. So topical cream.
I've heard of that. It's the topical
yeah,
thing.
but
It's just like it's like a gel or a cream, and where do you
it can
like?
be a gel or a cream. So they have different compounds at compounding pharmacies that they mix with the testosterone to make it absorb better on the skin. And it's best to apply it to the scrotum in the morning, and sometimes morning and evening, depending on if you're trying to do a really high dose and you just need 2 applications to get the dose up. And for some men, they're weight training a lot or lifting lots of heavy weights, they need more testosterone. If they're really sexually active, they need more testosterone. If they're bigger men, so like think of like a retired linebacker or something, they're just like a refrigerator of a dude. So they probably need to have more testosterone than somebody who weighs like 170 pounds or something. So it is like most medications done loosely based on weight and activity levels.
Okay.
So usually, you don't usually go over 250 milligrams per week. Usually it's 100 to 200 milligrams per week of injectable, and it's an intramuscular injection. Sometimes people do better on injecting it into subcutaneous fat, so that's a different injection technique. And then for guys who are just like, oh wow, I'm completely needle phobic, I will faint if I try to inject myself, then
It's always the biggest, toughest guys too.
Yeah, it's true, actually. Yeah. And I've worked with all kinds of guys. I worked with policemen. I worked with military, retired military. I worked with private investigators. I worked with guys who have been in like bank shootouts, worked on the K9 bomb squad. I worked with guys who are in tech, hunters, people who are, like everyday blue collar mechanics or construction workers. So it's all walks of life. And the thing with medicine is it doesn't care who you are or what you do for a living, or health conditions hit everybody. And it's like diabetes hits a lot of different types of people, and that can cause low testosterone alone. So if you look at the stats of diabetes and obesity, they're going up every year. About 40% of the US population has metabolic syndrome, which is insulin resistance. And basically that means that your cells can't store energy correctly. There's a issue with compartmentalizing energy and storing it, and has to do with your pancreas and your endocrine system. And then that causes this inflammation in the body over time, and that can cause damage to the testes, and that over time causes issues with testosterone. So if you have pre-diabetes and you're a little overweight, maybe you're only 25 pounds overweight, it's easy to lose. If you're gung-ho about it, you can lose that weight. And that weight could be contributing to somebody's sleep apnea. And these are things that I see all the time. And the obesity epidemic is about 50% of the US population now for adults, and I think it's over 25% in some populations for children. So it's just a huge problem. And there's other issues too around testosterone, things that can cause it that are really common for men. One is concussions and head injuries. And the way we deal with concussions today in medicine, at least in integrative medicine and the medicine that I practice, is a lot different than what you're going to get if you go to a conventional neurologist, where they basically say, well, you don't really need brain surgery and it wasn't that bad of a concussion. So, you didn't crack your skull open or anything. So there's not much we can do for you. So, we'll just watch them wait, and we'll maybe give you some pain medications. If you have a lot of headaches or you can't sleep or something, we'll give you some sleeping medications. It's not easy to function the next day on those things. Like if you've ever taken a muscle relaxer, it's going to knock you out for a while. So Concussions can, once you get those treated with things like hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and there's some key specific nutrients that can be really helpful for that. And if you're, 40 years old and you played high school or college football and you got knocked out a few times, or maybe it wasn't football, but maybe you were skateboarding or just messing around, and you jumped into your friend's lake in the summer and you hit the bottom and you hit your head and you just kind of shook it off, but your bell was rung. So all those things can add up. And if you've had, usually guys I talk to, they've had one or two really bad concussions, and that trauma can cause low testosterone, can cause a lot of other problems too, like executive functioning disorder, which looks like probably adult ADD and is being misdiagnosed and mistreated as ADD and is not. So they're on things like Ritalin or Adderall, so they can focus and get through the day. The other thing is, if you've ever had a really big trauma to the testes, that can cause low testosterone. So, if you grew up with brothers like I did, you're probably roughhousing a lot and probably get punched or kicked in the balls a few times.
Mm-hmm. You have friends who like to do the sack tap game.
Yeah. So things like that. I mean, maybe it's not that bad most of the time, and most people is just like, oh well, it obviously doesn't feel good, but it wasn't enough to cause low testosterone. But if you get in a fight or something with somebody who's trying to cause real harm and they kick you in the balls, then that could cause low testosterone. I had a patient, for example, who had a trauma to the testes, and they were jet skiing, and they basically, for some reason, had to stop really abruptly, or stopped really abruptly for some reason. I don't know why. And they slammed their whole scrotum basically against the front like console area. And so there's a lot of things. When I said in the beginning, there's a lot of things that can cause low testosterone. Usually as guys, we're like the walking wounded for our whole life, right? We're like
that's typical of us. We just say we'll walk it off, and then we never go to the doctor, and then I'll just wait till I can't ignore it anymore, and then 10 years later, we got to take the leg. What do you want to tell you? What do you want to tell you? You waited too long. And then, but we all do it, we all think we just walk it off. It'll go away eventually. And there's so many things that we can do to just improve the daily quality of our life if we actually just took the time to go to the doctor. But for whatever reason, we don't like to. I'm guilty of it myself. I should be going right now because I have a few things I want to get checked out. And now after talking to you, I have a few more things to add to that list. But it's something about us. I don't know if it's something that's drilled into us culturally, socially, but we don't like to go to the doctor unless there's obviously some guys who are, hypochondriac. Well, is that I'm not sure if that's the right word, but yeah, it's everything. Oh my God, it's cancer. I got to go to the doctor. Right. And, they're on a first name basis with the nurses and
anxiety or something, or they have they may not even have had anybody in their family die of cancer. It may just be a mental illness or something, or they're just very anxious personality. But I'm with you. I mean, most of my friends growing up and myself before I was a doctor, I did not want to go to the doctor. I remember being a teenager lying to the doctor, basically, just saying, yep, whatever. Okay, let's get out of here. And, I don't work in a hospital. I work in a private clinic, and it's a lot different than basically the vibe of a hospital. And I think the hospitals have a time and a place for things like surgery and the ER. And for most everyday people, they don't need tons of medications. They don't need, which is what they're going to get in a hospital. Drugs and surgery are what you're going to get. And so if you're looking for something else, if you're looking for a root cause solution, you have to go somewhere else. You have to go and find somebody who is going to dig deep for you. They're going to do maybe a little bit more lab testing, more extensive lab testing. They're going to analyze those lab tests for optimal levels, not just sick people levels, like I was talking about with the testosterone, where, we've seen all these chronic inflammation, like diseases, lifestyle diseases like obesity and things like that skyrocket. And that's, basically driving down the normal of things like thyroid hormones and testosterone into this disease normal of these reference ranges. So the medical community is just seeing if you fall within the reference range, and then they're saying, okay, well, there's no red flags here. You're not dying. You're not going to die tomorrow. You have maybe high cholesterol and high blood pressure, and you need to lose some weight. So here's blood pressure medication, and here's a cholesterol medication. Both those things can cause problems for men as side effects. And I'm not telling anybody to stop taking their medications without changing their lifestyle and losing weight and changing that number for your blood pressure. But blood pressure medications can cause erectile dysfunction and sexual dysfunction. And statin medications, cholesterol medications can cause low testosterone because they're inhibiting cholesterol, and cholesterol is where we get our testosterone and our other steroid hormones from. Steroid is a biochemical name. It's not talking about injecting steroid hormones.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about D-ball people.
Yeah, that's right. And that's also actually another cause of low testosterone. It's very, very common. Men, especially earlier in their lives, may have used anabolic steroids from friends or their trainer, or at the their senior year of high school, so they could get into college level ball or whatever sport they're looking at.
Well, hang on, Doc. Listen, I was raised in New Jersey, East Coast. There is no shortage of guys there who were not student athletes. Just, they know some guy at the gym. They're going to do a cycle or two just for the summer because, they want to look good, do some curls for the girls, go out on the beach, go to Point Pleasant, maybe Seaside if you want to get a little crazy. And then they go start a fight somewhere and hit somebody with a bottle. And that's the whole cycle of steroids for these people. But it's not obviously the people that are using them for medical reasons. So
right,
we're very familiar here with those guys.
I bet. Yeah. Yeah. And so if somebody did that for a couple of years and maybe they stopped after, 5 years or whatever, how many years, or maybe they didn't, their own ability to make their own production of testosterone has been tanked. So later in life, that person, maybe they're coming around and they're saying, okay, I want to optimize my testosterone level, do it the right way, the healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
It's very different. It's very different from doing anabolic steroids. And there's a blog, I believe it's through testosteronation.com. You can look up somebody's blog they wrote. They were like a retired bodybuilder, and all the different types of things and medications that they were injecting and taking. And it's a long laundry list. It's a lot more detrimental to your health to do those things. And that's the reason why they have to cycle off of these things. And, there's a lot more to it. But basically that's a good blog to read through if you yourself or maybe your friends or a family member, if you're listening to this and that they've been cycling on and off for a while or used to, they should read that blog and then also consider, okay, let's get our testosterone levels checked. Let's see if we need to be on the, the healthier version of this thing and do it right. So, you still could improve your bench press and, how much you're squatting and deadlifting and all those things. If in powerlifting, if you do get on testosterone therapy, but it's different and it's a lot safer than doing the other stuff, which, people are dying of having like a heart attack. And you hear it in the news, like every year there's like a famous bodybuilder guy who just overdid it and did it wrong or did it for too long. And, another guy's dead. So I just bring that up because I know, as you say, in New Jersey, it's really common. And I think it's common in most places. When I was working out with some buddies a long time ago now, and one of my friends in college, I believe it was, he said, like, yeah, I did a couple of rounds of steroids. And he was like, just, look around the gym with me right now, and I'm going to point out all the dudes who are on steroids right now.
And it's just him.
Yeah. And he's like,
So
that's another reason why to wipe down the Bell bar. Like, so
I have a question. What's like I've heard, obviously people know about injecting steroids like with needles, but I've heard of guys taking them like through a pill. Like, what's the big difference? I've heard, is it true the pill is harder on your liver? Like, why the difference? Why not just everybody take a pill?
yeah, testosterone internally and estrogen internally are not a good idea because the way that the liver metabolizes it through the gut, it's more likely to create problems, especially estrogen for women orally, can, for some people especially, create problems in regards to cancers.
Okay.
There's synthetic hormone replacement therapy, and then there's what's called bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. And synthetic hormone replacement therapy has usually been extracted from like horse urine, like Premarin, Prempro, or it's been extracted through other means, where bioidentical is more similar to our own steroid hormones, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, for example. Like, those are the three that we use usually. That's like the main focus. And basically it's extracted from wild yam, which is not like the yam that you eat at your dinner table. It's basically a root medicinal plant that grows in places like South Central America. And that's where we, through a whole chemical process, they're extracting these hormones, and then they put it into like a container and a powder, and it's all FDA approved, and they ship it out to compounding pharmacies, which are private pharmacies, and then they're mixing it into a cream or a gel, or they're mixing it in the pharmacies that make the injectables into an oil. Usually it's grapeseed oil or sesame seed oil, and then they are in a sterile vial and you inject it. So I don't recommend the pill, but you can.
Yeah, no, we're not going to advocate for any kind of steroids here. I just want to make sure I'm clear about that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different routes. I mean, you can do like the buccal troches. They're like, it kind of tastes like candy. They make them kind of taste somewhat sweet, and you just put them in your cheek, and that can be kind of like a boost if somebody is, they're already doing a cream or injection, but on top of that, they're about to go to the gym and they just want to have like, it's a lower dose, maybe 5 milligrams or something, right before a workout. Or maybe they're taking tadalafil, which is like a cousin of Viagra, and they also want to have a troche of testosterone before like a date night or something like that. So
okay. So before we I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah, that's a safer way to go about it. Yeah.
All right, so we're getting kind of close to the end here, so I want to make sure we cover a few more things before I get you out of here. Just to put a button on the testosterone conversation. So a guy, you can just go into your regular doctor and they can give you the test. Like, is that, you don't have to go to a special place for that or anything, right?
Usually, conventional primary care doctors don't know a lot about testosterone, and even a lot of urologists today think that testosterone replacement therapy may cause prostate cancer, which is another big mythology about testosterone, and it doesn't. And there's a lot of research to prove this to be true. So I would go to a specialty doctor who specializes in, things like anti-aging medicine, longevity medicine, integrative men's hormone health, and get the lab test. You could get the test from your conventional doctor and just bill that to insurance. And then you could take it to that other clinic and say like, hey, he said or she said my testosterone was normal. It's 400. I feel like crap. I never used to feel like this. What the hell's going on? Let's figure this out, So that's what I would recommend. You can get the lab test covered by your insurance and then go to the other practitioner. Just be wary of these low-T clinics all around the country that are basically treating every patient exactly the same. Like, every patient gets this kind of like the same exit bag of medication. So be wary of those. They're all over the place. They're charging way too much money. They usually advertise. They have like a loss leader advertisement. It's like, okay, like first visit, like $99. And then you come in and then you leave and now you spent like $9,000 and you don't know what happened to you. And you're kind of like, okay. And then the guy next to you is getting the exact same prescriptions. And there's no like talk about nutrition maybe, or there's no talk about exercise or side effects of testosterone. It's just kind of like pushed on you. So be wary of those. But find somebody who can be your advocate for your health, who can be your individual doctor that is there in your corner, and you're basically working together more as a team and a partnership versus like one person kind of just like dictating a prescription treatment plan to you that you didn't really want in the first place. So, just be clear of like what you want, what you don't want, and what outcomes you want to achieve, and interview them and see if they're a good fit, which is why I do like a free discovery call with prospective patients and say, let's get on the phone for 30 minutes. Let's chat. Let's see if I'm a good fit for you. If somebody doesn't like me in those 15 to 30 minutes, then they shouldn't work with me, and vice versa. If somebody, hears me talk to you on this podcast and they're like, okay, I like what this guy's saying. Like, I want to get on a discovery call with him and chat with him, and, we can work together. Great. If not, then I may be able to refer you to somebody else that can maybe fit what you're looking for more, or at least recommend what to look for. So it's not something that you're going to really find with like a conventional clinic or hospital down the street. And typically, things like androgel and the conventional testosterone is such a low dose of testosterone, it shuts off your own production, and it doesn't actually replace it, if you will. So you're shutting off your brain signal to the testes, and then the testes stop making testosterone, but you're applying this gel, and then your estrogen as a guy gets all jacked up and you feel all weird. That's not what we're going for. So that's what I see over and over again with the androgel, which is the conventional medicine approach to this. So that's why, me and other doctors specialize in this area of men's health, so that we can help men optimize their hormones, and you can go back to doing all the things you want to do and potentially have enough energy to eat better and, exercise more. And, maybe you could add 5-10 years onto your life, or, you could be healthy enough to see your grandkids graduate from college, or whatever your motivation be. It doesn't always have to be about like, hey, I want to wake up every morning with like a rock hard erection like I did when I was 18 and have sex like 5 times a day. Whereas some guys, that may be their motivation. Usually it's more about like, hey, I go to work all day. I'm exhausted when I get home. I used to have energy in the summer to like mow the lawn twice a week, or, play with my kids and throw the baseball or football around. And now I just want to lay on the couch and watch TV, and then I fall asleep. So,
Doc, I got to tell you, you're really getting close to home here with that one, because that's definitely something that I've struggled with for the past, probably 2 to 3 years. My son is 9 years old, and I find that I have very little energy to do much with him other than play video games after working on a construction site all day. And it's a constant internal conflict I have with myself. Like, I don't want the kid to grow up and only play video games. I want to take him out and do stuff. So when I do have energy, we try to go ride bikes and get out of the house, especially now he's stuck home all the time. And, there's definitely, I know for a fact that there's a lot of my listeners right now probably hearing a lot of the stuff you said, a lot of the things you listed off, and said, yep, that's me. I feel like it's a very broad spectrum of guys out there, especially in the age range. Like myself, I'm 35, right around there, I feel like is when a lot of times we just chalk it up as like, you're getting older. What do you want to do? But there's science behind this. There's actual, anyway. So the last thing I want to talk about, this is actually something that I got from your Instagram, which I really, really loved. You had a post that said, be hard to kill. Make yourself harder to kill. And I love that, because it's very simple and concise and to the point, but it's such a broad phrase. There's like all the ways you can take preventative measures, make yourself, healthier overall, make yourself more resilient. And like you said earlier, this is all stuff that we kind of let fall by the wayside as we get older. It's like, I don't have time to work out. I'm tired. And next thing you know, you maybe get around your 50s, 60s, you take one wrong step, and next thing you know, your hip is messed up, or you messed up your knee. How many guys go, my bad knee, hasn't been the same since '85. But what are some ways that the average guy, the guys like myself, guys like, maybe you work for the post office, maybe you just work in an office sitting in a cubicle all day. What are some common sense ways common sense steps that we can take to make ourselves, hard to kill, make ourselves more resilient and stronger, so to speak?
Yeah. So where that comes from is, I think it comes from like a couple, I think they're personal trainers and maybe health coaches who created that saying of be hard to kill. And if you think about it,
Wait, that's not from the Steven Seagal movie?
Maybe. Maybe Seagal made it up. And he's big into martial arts and stuff, so I could see that too. He was all that back in the 90s. So basically, if you think about it, like we evolved in nature, hunter gatherers. So whatever your ancestors ate, going back 2-3 generations. So if going back to maybe your great grandparents or so, and do your best to emulate how they ate, and also fast, do intermittent fasting. And if you can't handle intermittent fasting, you need to go get a fasting blood glucose, fasting insulin test, and a hemoglobin A1C, and maybe even a glycomark test, and see what's going on with your blood glucose, because that's going to really help with your immune system, with your energy, with your brain health. If insulin is off, you're more apt to, if you have insulin resistance or diabetes, you're more apt to get cancer or heart disease. Prostate cancer is one of the number one killers of men today, after heart disease. And what you want to do is you want to do everything you can. We all die some way, somehow, but you want to do everything you can to prevent these degenerative diseases that are basically breaking down our, the tissues in the brain, our joints, the cardiovascular system, and making it harder for you to go out that way, which is how most people are going to die. And, today the average life expectancy in the United States is 78 or younger. It goes by state. So you can look this up online. You can Google, or, if you use something else for a search engine, just look up, life expectancy for men in New Jersey, or California, or wherever your home state is, Washington State, Montana, whatever. And you'll see in some states it's 77, 76 years old for men. And obviously there's certain professions where it's more likely that someone's going to die from an accident. If you're an iron worker building skyscrapers or something, that's a dangerous job. Or if you're like an underwater welder or something, that's why those people get paid so much money. It's because they're basically risking their lives. So that is,
and if you're an iron worker, you're probably doing it with reckless abandon, as I've seen them do so often. Yeah, there's a different breed of people. They are just a totally savage breed of people.
Yeah. So accidents aside, we're talking about internal health, but obviously don't do stupid things. Like, I used to work construction and things like that, and landscaping. And I was a lot younger then. And there was a guy he was like, most all my friends are dead, and we're all like alcoholics, and we all like happened to just get on a motorcycle after drinking like a fifth of Jack Daniels or whatever. And that's how like his last friend died, and he almost died doing that. And it's like, those things are going to kill men, and they do. And that's why a lot of men die sooner than women and earlier on in their life. Suicide is also a big one, and mental health issues leading to suicide. So those things are, those are more in the mental health category, which isn't my specialty, but you need to work with people. You need to work with, if that's your issue, you need to work with a professional who specializes in those things, potentially a psychiatrist and a psychologist, or drug and alcohol counselor who specializes in those things, and you may need to go to treatment or something. But those things aside, work on things like fasting. Something that can increase energy during the day that listeners can do right away after listening to this is don't eat carbohydrates during, even if they're healthy carbohydrates and gluten-free, during lunch. So your lunch could be basically, like a piece of fruit, could be in the more like summer, spring and fall months, could be a salad or cooked vegetables, and then, like a 4 to 6 ounce steak. And that could be your lunch. And then at dinner, you can eat more carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, whether it's like a brown rice pasta or sweet potato, like a half or quarter sweet potato, and that'll help you sleep better. So exercising, as we talked about, longevity science says at least 150 minutes a week for exercise. And for people who have kids like yourself, you can do exercise with your kids. So that could just look like, hey, you know what? When I get home, we're going to go walk to the park instead of drive. It's 2 miles away. We're going to walk there, assuming it's a safe and calm walk. We're going to walk over there. We're going to walk home. And while we're there, we're going to, throw around the football, and then we'll walk back home. That counts as exercise. You don't have to separate yourself from your family and go to the gym and be away from your family even more if you have those family responsibilities. If you have really young kids and you're at the playground, they're playing on a playground, you can do, while you're there, you can do pull-ups on the monkey bars. You can play tag with them. You can put them on your back and do squats. If they weigh, a certain amount of weight, it's not going to hurt you. So there's ways to like fit this in where it's not, I think a lot of us, myself included, think of like, okay, exercise. Okay, well, I got to go to the gym, or I got to be on a road bike, or I got to be running. And you could even, if you have a young child, 7 or older, and they're already in sports, you could go run or train with them. You could say like, okay, well, we're going to go on a 2-mile jog together. And that could be you hanging out with your child. They're getting quality time with you. You're getting exercise. You can do that together. Or if you like to do other outdoor stuff, you could go for a hike on a weekend or something like that. So there's a lot of ways to just fit it in.
I was sorry to interrupt, but that was a really good suggestion, especially for someone who has kids like 7 and up. Doing stuff together. Most kids play soccer at that age. Go to the park, just play. Chase the ball a little bit with the kid. And it's such a simple thing that I feel like nobody is even thinking about. And that's such a great workout. You're running. You're running for an extended period of time. Your kid is laughing. You're having fun. It's quality time. That I really can't stress how great of an idea that sounds like. I'm really happy that you said that, because I'm going to have to do that soon now.
Yeah.
So
glad you like.
Yeah, what's that?
I'm glad you like that idea. Yeah.
Oh, he's going to be very happy when I bring that up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make sure he sends you a thank you card. So yeah, we're pretty much at the end here. So where can people find you? I know you have a podcast, you have a website. You give us all the links, anything you want to plug.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to make sure
you can go to my website. It's APolloHealthClinic.com, APOLLO healthclinic.com. And on there I have a free download, and it's titled Andropause, and it basically gives you a lifestyle outline for exercise, nutrition, and a bunch of other stuff, what labs to get ordered, and all that to check your testosterone. And you want to check it at least once a year, even if it's above 700 total testosterone, above 20 or 30 free testosterone. Most people don't have a 30 free testosterone, which would be nanograms per deciliter testosterone. So anyway, you can go to APolloHealthClinic.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Sam Madeira, spelled out DOCTOR SAMMADEIRA. And
right there, I'm going to put it right under your picture where you
awesome.
said that.
Sweet. And the other thing is my podcast, as you mentioned, the Dr. Madeira Show. So Madeira spelled like the wine, and you can just go into whatever Spotify or iTunes, whatever iHeartRadio, and you can just type in the Dr. Madeira Show and it should pop up right there. We're releasing more episodes soon. We have 59 episodes released, and there's all kinds of stuff about like men's brain health, even some things about women's hormones. So if your wife or girlfriend wants to listen to that, you want to listen to that with them. There's stuff about male fertility, female fertility, and infertility. There's men's testosterone optimization stuff that's a major part of it. So you can check that out.
All right, Doc, it was a pleasure talking with you, and it was very educational. I hope people are getting something from this. At the very least, I'm getting something from this. So I'm very appreciative that you were generous with your time, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right. That's it. That was the episode. Big shout out, or big thank you to Dr. Sam for sharing his time with us. That was a very, very educational episode. I know I have a doctor's visit in my near future now after having spoken with him. But guys, please make sure you follow Dr. Sam. He's on Instagram, Dr. Sam Madeira. You could go to his website, apollohealthclinic.com. He's located in Washington State, so any East Coasters, unless you plan on flying to every visit, I don't think that's going to work. But please make sure you follow him, and he's got a lot of good information. He's got a Make sure you listen to his podcast, The Dr. Madeira Show, available wherever you get your podcasts. I know I listen to it on Spotify, so I can attest to the fact that it is there. Please make sure you listen. And again, big thank you to him. Guys, take care of yourself, would you? Go to sleep. Turn off the damn TV. It's late. You need to sleep. The proof is in the pudding. Ask the doctor. Aside from that, thank you for listening to the show. Thank you for watching. If you're on YouTube, please make sure you hit subscribe, like. You know why. You know why. I don't need to tell you why. Also, if you're listening on iTunes, make sure you rate it. That helps. You know why. Again, the podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. It's available on YouTube. You already know that. And yeah, please, by the way, make sure you guys send me some questions via email, APodAmongstMen@gmail.com. Send me some questions. We can answer them on the show. It'll be fun, Be a good time. A nice little community here. That's it, guys. I'll see you next week. Peace.